So today, as I mentioned, what we are going to start with, we are going to start with the information security management. Okay. ISM is the practice of protecting and securing digital information and data assets from unauthorized access, theft, or damage. It involves identifying and assessing potential risks to information security and implementing measures to mitigate those risks. So this can include the implementation of policies, procedures, and technologies to safeguard information from threats such as cyber attacks, theft, or any accidental damage. And information security management is critical for protecting sensitive information, ensuring business continuity, and maintaining the trust with the stakeholders. So it's a process, we can say, of protecting an organization's sensitive and confidential information from unauthorized access or unauthorized use, any disclosure, disruption, modification, or any kind of a destruction, guys, right? So providing a security so that we can keep our things intact, right? So kind of a, we can say, systematic approach in order to manage and mitigate the risk which are associated with the CIAs, as you guys have mentioned, Krishna and Hitesh. Uh, Mitigate the risk which are associated with your confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization's information's assets, right? So confidentiality means what? Confidentiality means not to reveal or no unauthorized access, right? Should be there. And we can attain confidentiality by using what? Encryption, correct? Integrity means perfect, no change in data, as in it should be intact, no modification, no tampering, right? How can we attain it? We can attain it by using hashing or hash, right? Perfect. And A stands for your availability, right? To make sure your data and services are available for its genuine users, correct? Whenever it is requested. So this information security management, it's a systematic approach, as I mentioned, in order to manage and mitigate risk which are associated with our CIA triad of an organization's information assets. So information security management, we can say it involves, the sets, or you can say a comprehensive set of policies, procedures, guidelines, and controls that are designed to protect an organization's information's assets. All policies will be there, which will be defining what to do, right? Procedures, how it will be done, guidelines, the recommendations, controls, the security controls you might have heard about, right? So anything which will be providing us the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the data, right? Agree? So your firewalls, security guards, policies, procedures, guidelines, yes, antivirus, IDs, IPs, all are your security controls, right? Three types are there: technical, operational, and managerial, right? Technical, known as a logical controls; operational, handled by people; managerial, more of an administrative or centralized one, where your policies, guidelines, these things are considered. In terms of functionality, just giving a quick idea about it. In terms of functionality and security control, we have preventive type, detective, what else? Corrective, physical, deterrent, and compensating. Right? Preventive as in something which is there in order to prevent from any attack. Or like on the very first phase, it is there in order to thwart the attack, being resilient so that that attack won't happen or it won't be successful on the very first place. Right? Firewall can be a good example for that. Perfect. Detective, then what is detective? So it's for what reason? In case your preventive has been bypassed, like an attacker bypass the preventive layer, we can say, or preventive controls. What we need to do, we need to detect it also, right? If there is an attack happening in the organization, isn't it? That's also an important factor, correct? So our SIM tools, these are also there. Splunk, IBM Curator, they are also there in order to do the detection, right, of an attack happening. A monitoring, you can say, will be there. Correct. So detective would be like just like your smoke detector is there, right? In a hotel room or anywhere. So whenever there is a fire we are considering like an attack only. Correct. It's a threat. So fire is there, smoke comes out, and it is detected by a smoke detector. And smoke detector what does what? It raises an alarm and notifies each and everyone that a fire is there. Correct. So similarly within the organization, whenever there is an attack, we have detective controls like your SIM solution. Just for example, they do what? Whenever an attack has been detected, they will raise an alarm and let everyone knows about it that we are under the attack. Make sense? Then we have the corrective one. Corrective is for what? Like, okay, once it has been detected, we have to take the corrective measures in order to remediate it, right? Instant response, nice one. Correct, the mitigations of it. So taking the previous example, the fire one, smoke detector is there, it raises an alarm. What happens after that? The water sprinklers are there, right? And they ejects the water out of it and try to control the fire. That's what we do in our organization. Also, we have incident response team, and they'll make sure that that attack is not spread out more. It won't impact more to the organization, and we try to eradicate it or mitigate it as much as we can. Make sense? Deterrent control are the one those who will be providing you or those who give the psychological discouragements. So, for example, everyone has seen the deterrent control. If you're trying to enter into a house, have you seen there's a board or a sign, warning sign which says "Be aware of dogs," right? So if you're trying to enter into a house, and if you see that board which says "Be aware of dogs," now what happens? Will you enter that house? Psychologically it discouraged you that there might be some dogs which can, those can bite me. That thing. Romeo, nice one. Yes. So that's a deterrent control. Or any shopping mall or any place you have seen that which writes you are under CCTV surveillance. So now it's like psychologically in your mind that okay, if you try to do some stealing, uh, we'll be captured in a cameras and they can get back to us. That thing. Similarly, if you talk about in the organization, it's like whenever you're trying to access a file or any system which is very confidential. Okay. Um, so there's a banner over there which says, no, this system contains or this folder contains highly confidential files. If you're the authorized person, only then access it. And they will mention like, your each and every activity is being monitored and under this act, blah, 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 or under this rule. In case if you found, doing something suspicious or malicious, like, deleting file or copying and blah, blah, blah. So as per this act, as per this law, you know, we'll charge you with these things and you might have to face these many months behind the bars and this much of a penalty will be there and all of these things. So it is for, you can say, a deterrent control for insider threat, right? Insider threat, right? So these are the deterrents. So simple example, in India lockdown happened. Our prime minister used to come, on the news channel at around 8 p.m. and give us the guidelines. So giving those guidelines will be the managerial type of security control. But in terms of functionality, when we talk about, so what we got out, what we got to know is that in news channel, one more news was going on that if you found out roaming around on the streets for no reason and for no urgency, the cops are waiting for you with the bamboo sticks in order to give you a very warm welcome, right? So as soon as you saw that message on the news channel, it psychologically discouraged you from going out. Make sense? So that your deterrent functionality. So these are your functionalities of security controls. Perfect. So as I was saying, ISM involves set of policies, procedures, guidelines, and controls that are designed to protect an organization information assets. So these measures which we take, they are, you can say, or they aim to prevent cyber attacks, your data breaches, or any other forms of unauthorized access to confidential information. Okay, unauthorized access to confidential information. So if you're talking about the type of information security management, if you're talking about the types, uh, or not types, even the examples of information security management practices, examples of information security management practices, if you're talking about what we can have, risk management, which we are going to discuss later. Risk management is there. Access control also, which we are going to talk about later after this. Incident response. Security awareness training. See guys, security awareness training is also an important part. Never think it's a very small thing or a small activity in the organization. Reason being, you have read about the social engineering, right? Apart from that, if I talk about from attackers' point of view, no, see in cybersecurity, humans are always considered the weakest link. Okay, humans are always considered the weakest link, correct? Because human errors are there. We as in human, we have tendency to trust. We have that nature of helping and all those things, right? So that's why attackers that they can take an advantage of these things only. Right? So that's why security awareness training is also equally important. And compliance, we can also include that as well. Compliance management, right? That will be covering the rest of the things. These are a couple of examples for your ISM practices. So risk management, uh, just giving a quick idea. Yeah, information security management, it involves identifying potential security risk, assessing their likelihood, their impact, and developing a risk mitigation plan. Risk management, they can help organization to minimize the impact of security breaches, right? Access control, if you talk about, the process of, you can say, limiting access to sensitive information to only authorized people or authorized personnel. It will be involving the use of, you can say, various techniques like your authentication, authorization, right, and encryption to ensure that only authorized individual can have access to the sensitive data. We'll talk about it also later. Incident response, again, the set of procedures and protocols that are followed in case of a security breach or in case of any incident which has happened. So basically goal, if you talk about of incident response, it is to minimize the impact of the incident and restore the normal operations as soon as possible, right? Security awareness training, where we educate employees, you can see stakeholders, about the importance of information security and how to identify and prevent security breaches. And this training, it can help to reduce the risk of human error, as I mentioned, and improve your overall security posture of the organization. Compliance management involves ensuring that organization complies with the relevant laws, regulations, standards related to your information security. So this compliance can help to minimize the risk of legal or regulatory penalties. So in short, if I have to talk about information security management, guys, it is quite an important practice for any organization that will be valuing the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its information assets. So we implement these effective practices. uh, Organizations, they can mitigate the security risk, they can protect their sensitive information, and they can ensure the continuity of their operations. Then if we talk about the objective of information security management, primary objective of information security management is to protect the, as we have talked about it, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the organization's information assets. So this include ensuring that sensitive information is not disclosed to unauthorized individuals or entities, that data is accurate and reliable. ISM may include ensuring compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, and ISM is to help organization uh, manage their information security risk in a way that is effective, efficient, and aligned with their overall business goals and objective. Right? Perfect. So, objective, as I mentioned, it is to ensure that we have the CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability of an organization information assets. And these objectives, they are basically achieved by what? By implementing set of policies, procedures, controls that will be addressing the risks which are associated with our organization information asset. Right? So objective would be like to have confidentiality, ensuring that only authorized individuals can have access to sensitive information, right? So encryption, access controls, these security measures will be there. Integrity, ensuring that information is accurate, right? Your information is accurate, complete, and has not been tampered with any other thing. And it involves implementing measures to prevent unauthorized modification or destruction of information. Availability, ensuring that information is available when needed. It involves implementing measures to prevent system failures, network outages, these kind of things. Compliance, ensuring that the organization complies with the relevant laws, regulation, industry standards. Risk management, again, identifying the potential security risks and implementing the measures to mitigate those risks, right? So risk assessment will be done. Risk mitigations plans will be there. We'll be monitoring the effectiveness of the security controls which has been implemented within the organization, how efficient they are, how efficiently they are working, are they fulfilling their purpose, all those things basically, right? Now, if we talk about benefit of information security management, so here they are. When we talk about benefit of ISM, so protecting of confidential and sensitive information. So ISM helps to protect an organization confidential and sensitive information from unauthorized access, disclosure, and theft, right? So this ensures that your organization's sensitive and confidential information, it is protected from unauthorized access, use, or disclosure, and this can help to prevent financial losses, any damages or reputation damage, right, or legal liabilities, right? Because see, whenever anything is related to sensitive information only, right, data breaches and every that, but brand reputation is the most important thing, isn't it? Because everything, if you talk about whatever we have, your inputs are there, everything is related to that only, correct? Agree? Right. That's why brand reputation is important, and we have to protect the sensitive information, because if they are gone, there'll be huge damage to the reputation, right? The sensitive information, whenever there's a breach or something like that, obviously, guys, financial loss will be there, reputation damage will be there, and legal involvement will also be part of it. Legal liabilities will always be there. Company will be fined for huge amount of dollars, or you can say that amount. So you can just give a read to any of the data breach and see how much fine a company has to pay. It will be huge, guys, huge, if they're not following the proper practices. So improved business continuity is there by implementing ISM practices. Organization, they can ensure that critical systems and services are available when needed, and that business operation can continue in the event of a disruption, right? So yeah, we can say, like, whenever any, maybe we can say, disaster happen, at least we have to make sure the important systems or the critical system that keeps on running, so that we can serve the business. That's why we have the disaster recovery plan also, right? Which helps you to go with the BCP, business continuity planning. The business needs to be continued, right? So for example, if there is a power cutout in my area, so for me, business continuity would be like, I have to make sure this webinar, this session keeps on running. For that, whatever the measures I might have uh, um, a UPS, or an inverter or a generator as a backup plan, right? So that we can continue the session. And meanwhile, we are having a session and there's a cutout. I will call the electricity person and I will ask him to check what's going on and make the fix or do the fix, so that we can get back to the normal electricity. So that's how things are done, isn't it? So we have to make sure business continuity needs to be there. So ISM also covers that. That's kind of a benefit from it. Compliance with legal and regulatory requirements, which you already talked about it, right? So compliance with regulation standards. So ISM, it helps organization to comply with relevant laws and regulations related to information security and data privacy, right? So it helps organization to comply with relevant regulations, sorry, and standards which are related to information security. So compliance, they can help to avoid legal or any regulatory penalties, which I was saying, from the laws, and improve the organization's reputation. Correct. So yeah, proper, you can say, risk management. So it helps the organization to identify potential security risks and implement the measures to mitigate those risks. So effective risk management, they can reduce the likelihood and impact of security breaches. If you want to include, yes, a lot of things can be included apart from these also. It can keep on increasing. like for example, improve productivity. So this ISM, it can, improve the productivity of employees by providing a secure environment for them to work in, and employees are less likely to be distracted by security concern, which can lead to increased efficiency and effectiveness in their work, right? Um, Competitive advantage also we can add on. Competitive advantage. Competitive advantage is in organization, they can implement effective ISM, information security management practices, which can gain a competitive advantage over their competitors. So customers and partners, they are more likely to trust the organization that take information security seriously, isn't it? Right? Like, so what my point is that with that point which I was talking about, competitive advantage, right? So customers and partners, as I mentioned, they are more likely to trust the organization that take information security seriously. So guys, if I give you two example, one website is there which does not have any, um, certificates, like which is not compliance with, and another website is there. You know, for example, this. Have you guys heard about free charge? Okay, and no worries. So if I'm giving you two example, one website is there where we do not find anything, and another example of the website is this free charge. In this free charge, if you look very closely, right? So B website is a free charge. A website is your normal one in which these things are not there. Which one, as a customer, which you will trust more? A or B? B is a free charge. Obviously B, right? Obviously B. That's what we are saying. How security also helps you to get the customers. Because as a customer, guys, for me, my data is very valuable, right? It's very valuable. So in that way, security also helps you to generate these things. So see, security is not something which will be giving you or generating a revenue just like by selling a cloth does. No, selling any shoes does create a revenue. No, security won't give you revenue in that manner. But yes, in this way, making the trust of the customers, protecting you from any fines, heavy fines from big hacks, it helps you from those things, which is how your security also generates a revenue. And it also helps in securing insurance coverage at reasonable premium. Yes, absolutely. We also have known as this risk transference also is part of it, right? Risk transfer. Cost saving, we can include this, the same point which I was saying, we can also write it. Cost savings, right? Cost saving as in your information security management. It can help the organization to save the cost which is associated with security breaches, any legal liabilities, and regulatory penalties. So by implementing effective security measures, organization can avoid the cost of remediation and recovery. What do we have? We have access controls. Okay, we have access control. So access control is what? So I know where you got that answer from. I already guessed that. Access control is what? It is a process of managing and controlling the access to resources such as physical location, digital systems, or data. Right. So it involves determining who is allowed access to specific resources, under what condition, right? And for what purposes. So it's a critical component of information security as it helps to prevent unauthorized access to sensitive information and your resources. So it can be implemented through a variety of mechanism, including authentication, authorization, and accounting, and can be implemented at various levels, including physical access control, network access control, That is security control. Oh, sorry. Access control is what? It is a process of granting or restricting access to resources, to system, your data, all these things, or information based on a set of predefined rules or policies. So the goal of the access control is to ensure that only authorized individuals are able to access and modify your sensitive information, right? So access control mechanism can be implemented using a variety of techniques such as password, biometric authentication, and all those things. So yeah, like you can have administrative access control, you can have your technical access control, you can have your physical access control. These can also be there. In access control, we have seen triple A concept is also there. Triple A concept is also there. Triple A stands for authorization, authentication, nice, accounting, right? When we talk about authentication, yes, exactly. Kellen, Shyam, source reliable, proving the identity. Yes, perfect. So authentication means what? We are telling what we are claiming to be. We are proving ourselves what we claim to be, isn't it? That's your authentication. You're giving your ID and password. You're giving your password over there. You're authenticating yourself. You're telling Facebook that this is me only, right? That's your authentication. Correct. So when you talk about authentication, in terms of authentication, we do have some authentication factors. We call it like for example, authentication factor like something you know. I'm writing authentication factors. Okay, something you have and something you are. Something you know. Anyone who can tell me what do you mean by the term something you know? It's your knowledgeable factor, right? Nice one, password. Yes. Knowledgeable factor. Something in other words, guys, we can say uh, anything which you have to memorize. So no fingerprint, no token ID for this. Anything which you need to memorize, I would put it into your something which you have to memorize. So tell me one thing. Do you have to memorize your password, right? Password or your pattern? So that will fall under the category of your something know, which you have to memorize, okay, in order to implement. Something you have is a kind of an ownership, we can say. Something you are is your biometric, exactly. So biometric would be like your fingerprint, face recognition, your retina scan, right? Perfect. Out of these three, which one is the stronger one? Anyone? Fingerprint, face, retina scan? Retina Patrick or retinal scan, something which is other, on the other side of your eye, not the iris one, the inside one. Abhishek, kind of unique cannot be cloned. Bagam, Santosh Kumar, nice one. Check blood vessels. That's what I was looking out for. Shivam, DNA scan. Yeah, see, retina scan is something which you can say, um, why it is kind of a, why it is spatial out of these three is, see, retina scan is, look out for your blood vessels over there, which remains the same since your, when you were born until the day you die, until unless you have, or you met with any major accident, or any operations happen, your retinas, these blood vessels will remain the same since the day you were born till the day you die. That's why. Okay. You might have seen, in military places or in movies also, they emit a red light, and it will be scanning your entire eye and checking out for your blood vessels and make sure that okay, this is you only, and that will let you enter, right? Deepika Ritik movie. I don't remember this Dhoom or what. But anyway, that's something you are. Many things can be also included in these authentication factors. Just to let you know, guys, I would say like secondary attributes we can include, like your um, palm scan is also there. Do you know that? Look out for your, you know, veins and all those things, and it scans your palm. So if you give any examination also, for example, of ISC square, they will, like, before giving the examination, they will scan your palm in any physical center. They'll scan your palm, then you go and give your examination. Once you are done with the examination, you come out again, your palm will be scanned and then it will be matched. So palm scan is also done. um Signature. Do you think signature scan is quite good? Oh, sorry, scan as in signature based authentication is also effective. I'm not comparing with any of others. I'm not comparing with any of the others, but I'm just saying its signature can be duplicated. Romeo, I guess we all have done that in our, when once we were kids. Whenever a teacher asked to, you know, bring the signature of your parents, they have written the complaints. Yeah, progress card and all those places. We have faked our parents' signature. Even my dad can, take out the money from the bank using my mother's signature. So these things can happen. I agree with that, but that is what people, do not um, scan those signatures. That is the reason for that. Actually, see, we have seen digital signatures are also there. Like, we have writing pads or sign pads are there. You can sign on it, and your, digitally your signature will be implemented. Correct. That things are also there. Patrick, I will tell you why I'm saying that, because that's why I said, like, my dad can take the money by using my mother's signature. He can fake it and he can cash out the money from her account. Just telling you, it's not like my father is scamming my mother. Just giving an idea. Uh, Banks also get fooled. So what happens actually is, um, we have the signature pad. If you do your signature over there, your signatures are digitally implemented also, right? But what thing is also there, I'm just giving a bit more information to this, is why I'm saying digital, why I'm saying signatures are also, quite, they can be worked as in factors also, authentication factor, because see, uh, Patrick's way of signing and my way of signing is different, right? We, like, for example, if Patrick's signature is this, just give an example. Let's suppose this is Patrick's signature. Okay. Even if I copy it exactly the same, couple of things will be changed. First thing, the stroke. Agree with it? The pressure Patrick's will be applying exactly, and the pressure which I'll be applying will be quite different from each other, doesn't it? And the flow will be different, right? Some part will also be different, very minute details if I have to give it. Some minute details will also be different. So these things can also be analyzed in order to determine whether it is an original signature or not, and something like that. Make sense? Like, experts will be required. A very small example is there. Um, have you seen, there's this show? It was with the name Pawn Shops or something, where they sell some, antique items to people, the shopkeeper, and then they negotiate in terms of the costing. Pawn shop, yeah, something like this. Okay, it stars though. So this is a very small video for that. This is a another general idea in terms of, without using any machines and any of that bit. You won't be able to see any audio is not there, but just to give an idea. They called an expert. See, this is an expert. And see, they're using the tools in order to analyze the signature more in depth. See the strokes, right? Ink, right? So that's what I'm saying. These things can also be verified, but still, yes, I would agree, not as a primary factor, but secondary factor it can also be used in order to go with authentication. Make sense? So these are there. Even the keystrokes, keypad, we call it something, in which even the typing is also different. Your way of typing is different. My way of typing is different, right? A button you might press a bit more for more seconds. I might not press that button for that much of a second. That can be also analyzed and that can also help in terms of authentication. Your device can be used to analyze those things, and those they can make a template because same way of writing is different. Abhishek way of writing is different. So as soon as that is detected, the device will get logged. Correct? Shivam, yes, I have seen that for Z. Yeah, exactly. Analyzing in deeply of currency notes. Yeah, so these are authentication factors basically when we talk about authentication. Uh, just to add on into this a bit more, see, these are authentication factors. Individually, guys, each one of them have their own respective weaknesses. Correct? Password can be guessed, it can be brute force, right? Attacks can be performed, ID card can be stolen, right? Fingerprint, someone can chop your finger and they can use it for authenticating, right? Or you have seen movies, clays are also made, or they take your fingerprint and then make something, and then they use that fingerprint over there. Correct? From the glasses, they capture your fingerprint and they can use it, isn't it? Face recognition we have seen from mobile phones. If you put twins together and sometimes the phones get cracked or it gets unlocked. Fast and Furious Mission, yeah, perfect. So that's what I'm trying to say. So individually, each one of them have their own respective weaknesses, but all together, or like I can say, once you combine two or more than two, it gives you a very stronger authentication and stronger security. That's where we get this concept of your MFA, as in multi-factor authentication. So using two or more than two authentication factors is known as your multi-factor authentication, so that it can be more secure. So you might have seen whenever you enter any password, like for example in your ATM, if you're trying to do any transaction, you enter certain amount, okay? So for that you have to enter a PIN. After that, if the amount is quite huge, you can say they send an OTP also to you. So once you enter the OTP, only then the confirmation is there, and then you can do the transaction in be it net banking, be it in ATMs also, right? Even your Google also, oh sorry, Gmail also does the same, right? If you're trying to log in, this sends an authentication also. You send that you click on that authentication link, or you just enter that you know uh, code, and then it lets you log in. So these are regarding your authentication factors, everyone. And then if you talk about authorization, in make sense. So in AAA, when we talk about authentication, authorization, and accounting. So authentication, we have talked about it. Authorization is giving the permission. So giving this read, write, and execute permissions. What person can access what thing is known as what? Authorization only. What he or she is authorized to, what accessibility they are, what they can do in that. That's your authorization. Correct responsibility, exactly. Rather, I won't be able to go with the Linux because my agenda is different. So you can always find out those videos. They'll be in YouTube, so we can get it from there. In case if you still find any trouble, I can give you pretty good references also side by side. So you can connect with me later, and I'll help you out. Perfect. Then we have this accounting. Accounting as in logs, a pretty good example for that. Which you can identify. Accounting when we say, so let me write it again. Authorization. So you can say permissions or read, write, execute. So like, your group based permissions can also be included into this concept, okay, of authorization. Because either I can sign individually also, but in organization, what happens? You won't give permissions to each and every individual person, because for 10 people it will be fine. But what if 200 people are there? So you cannot assign individually permissions for each and every person, because later it'll be getting more and more complicated. So that's why we go with the group based, right? So whosoever you are giving a read and write permissions, create a group and assign those people to that group, so that you have to make only changes in the group, rest automatically will inherit those permissions, right? Logs can be used. So accounting, you can say, that thing only, that in case any suspicious activity is going on, I can look out with the logs. It can help me to determine those things. That as a proof, it can be worked. It can be used for your investigations also, your incident response also, right? Your detections also. So logs can be used for that. Then we have types of access control: MAC, RBAC, DAC, and other also there. Rules base are also there. So let's do one thing. Um, Attributes, yeah, it can be keep on increasing. Others are also there, just to let you know. Now what do we have? We have access based controls, and we have its different types. Okay, we have DAC, MAC, RBAC, or like consider these three um, types of controls or access controls models, right? When we're talking about MAC, right? MAC stands for access control that is typically used in high security environments like your government or your uh, military areas, right? That's what your MAC talks about. So when you're talking about mandatory access control, more of a, like, you can say, centralized based one. Okay, MAC is more of a centralized based one, right? So these are like different type of access control models, I would say. So MAC, when we're talking about, it's a strict access control model which is used where we can put the principles of least privilege, right? What do you mean by least privilege? So least access control has been like, it will be giving you only that much of a access through which you can do your day-to-day activity, nothing more than that, right? So that you can do your job. That much amount of a minimal access, as you can say. Exactly, guys. Least access to do your job, that thing. Correct. So that's your MAC basically. So it's a strict access control model that is used to enforce this principle of least privilege. We'll put that note over here. So in this model, access to resources, it is basically granted based on the labels and the security clearance you are having. Okay, so each resource is assigned a label over here that will be, that represents their level of sensitivity, and each user or process is assigned a security clearance that represents their level of access. Okay, so access, I'm repeating it again. Each resource is assigned a label that represents its sensitivity level. Okay, and each user is assigned a security clearance that represents their level of access. So access is only granted if the user or that process has a clearance level that matches or exceeds the sensitivity label of the resource. So for example, a government agency, they may use, I can say military one, the MAC, to control the access to classified information. So each document is assigned a sensitivity level or label, we can say. Each document is assigned a sensitivity level, as in um, top secret, secret, confidential, right? And now each user is assigned a security clearance level. Example again, top secret, secret, confidential. So access is only granted if the user security clearance level or security clearance matches or exceeds the sensitivity level of the document. Okay, and if you talk about the user who is accessing this, the user who is trying to access this particular document, they will be also will assign them this clearance level, right? So again, for example, it is user A is there, user B is there, and user C is there. So for user A, we have given the clearance level is confidential, B is top secret, and C is your secret. So remember what I said? I said Access is only granted if the user or the process has a clearance level that matches or exceeds the sensitivity label of the resource. So resource is document, right? So for A, which is having the clearance level of confidential, so A can have access to confidential, top secret, and secret. For B, only top secret and secret. For C, only secret. Make sense? So DAC basically it's a, I would say, less strict. Okay, it's a less strict one as compared to the MAC one. Less strict access control, and this allows basically resource owners to determine, who can access their resources. So in this particular model, each resource that is owned by a particular user or a group, and access is granted or denied based on the owner's discretion. So the owner of the resource basically, in short, they can grant or deny the access to other users or group based on their trust level. Very simple example, if you want. Uh, have you heard about Google Document? If you talk about uh, this, Patrick, no. I'm just giving an example with the CEO. So CEO position or CEO role is having that access to a particular resource. So as per the rules or as per the position in the organization, you will have access to the resources rather than an individual identity. Okay, perfect. Advantages of access controls, pretty much things which we have covered. So protection of sensitive information, access control helps you to protect the sensitive information from unauthorized access, ensuring that only authorized individuals can view or modify the information. Enhance security, yes, access control can help to enhance overall security by preventing unauthorized access to critical resources such as system, networks, or data. Increase accountability, so by tracking and logging user access to resources. Access control helps to increase accountability and deter unauthorized access or misuse of information. Improve compliance, access control can help organization to meet the legal and regulatory requirements for protecting sensitive information like your HIPAA or GDPR. These are the regulations or act which can. A security policy is a set of rules and guidelines that define how an organization manages and protects the information assets. The security policy provides a framework for decision making around information security, outlining the measures that need to be taken to protect sensitive information and systems, and the roles and responsibility of individuals within the organization. Effective security policies, they are critical for protecting an organization information assets and ensuring that customers and stakeholders they trust an organization's ability to protect their data. So it should be reviewed regularly and updated as needed to reflect changes in business requirements. So security policy, when you talk about it, it's a formal document. You guys might have seen, a policy maybe whenever you joined an organization, some they might have talked about it, right, with the new employees. HR policy somewhere will be there, leave policy and all those things, right? So security policy, it's a formal document that will be, you can say, outlining the organization's guidelines or their procedures and what are the best practices will be there for securing your information systems and your data. So very important component, I would say, critical one of the organization's information security program. So because it provides you a kind of a roadmap for, you know, yeah, roadmap we can say for ensuring your confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its information assets. Right, that's your security policy. So when we are talking about security policy, guys, there's a structure for that actually. Okay, I'm just taking this blank space. In that section, what do we have? If you talk about structure, I'm giving an example of a structure of policy. A typical one. First is an introduction. Second is a policy statement. Third will be roles and responsibilities. Fourth would be a, you can say, standards and guidelines. Right. Fifth can be a compliance and enforcement. And 6 will be a policy review and update. Review and update. Assume everything is part of it only. So, okay. See, when we talk about introduction, it provides an overview of the policy. Okay, it provides you the overview of the policy, its purpose, overview, its purpose. Okay, and you can say any scope basically of that particular application. So it should include the statement of the organization commitment to information security. So in short, you can say it will be including the purpose and scope and commitment to information security. Then if you talk about policy statement, guys, policy statement, it basically does what? It will be outlining the organization's expectations for information security. It does what? It outlines organizations' expectations for information security. Okay. So it will be including the requirement for access control, data classification, the same thing which we did previously, secret, top secret, confidential, and instant response, these things. Okay. So policy statement will be access control, data classification, instant response can be example of that. Then roles and responsibilities, this will be identifying what the individuals or departments responsibility or responsible for implementing and enforcing the security policy. They'll be identifying the individuals or departments responsible for implementing and enforcing the security policy. So you can say information security team, your executive management, your end users involved in that, they'll be part of it. Standard and guidelines, you can see, those things which we, I guess, someone mentioned password policy in between, right? Sanjay, I guess it was, yeah, TEDx policy in these things. Yeah. So standard guidelines, they provide, specific instructions for implementing the security policy. It will include the technical standards for network security, password policy, and encryption requirement. It will tell you what all things needs to be there. How you're going to put it up, that's another part of the story. What security controls you are putting, that's your call. But policy says that there should be a password policy. That security policy said that there should be a password policy, and these things should be there. Like authentication should be there, multi-factor authentication should be there. So what kind of a multi-factor authentication you will be choosing, that is your call. But policy says password policy should be there, multi-factor authentication should be there. That part. Okay, so that will be your standard and guidelines. So network security, password policies, encryption requirement, all will be part of your standard and guidelines. Compliance and enforcement. Compliance and enforcement basically means what? Compliance and enforcement, it will be, you can say, outlining the consequences for non-compliance with the security policy if you're not following it. Okay, so some disciplinary action or legal consequences will be part of it. Legal consequences or disciplinary actions. And policy review and update, so like you should review it frequently, right? So policy review and update will be like, it's kind of a process for reviewing and updating the security policy to ensure that it remains relevant and effective. Okay, so it will be review, frequency, and your update process. So in short, security policy, kind of a document, a critical document, will be providing the framework for an organization information security program. So it will be outlining the expectations, responsibilities, guidelines for ensuring the CIA triad of its information assets. So it's a well-structured security policy that can help the organization to minimize its risk of data breaches and cyber attacks. Okay, so access control policy, acceptable use policy, data classification policy, instant response policy, physical security policy, password policy, or different type of policies are there within the organization. When we are talking these were the examples which I talked about: access control, acceptable use policy, data classification policies. But if you're talking about the types of policies, when you talk about in terms of security, we have promiscuous, permissive, prudent, and paranoid. Okay, Uh, when you talk about promiscuous policy, this policy doesn't impose any restriction on the usage of system resources. For example, with the promiscuous net policy, there is no restriction on net access. Okay, so it allows users to have unrestricted access to organizational resources. Okay, so there is no restrictions or controls in place, and users are free to access any resources they need. Okay, kind of a risky one, we can say, as it can allow unauthorized access to sensitive information, and it can increase the likelihood of security breaches. Correct. So any policy that allows employees to access all files on the network without any access control will be a promiscuous. Permissive, it is a medium restriction policy where we as an administrator block just some well-known ports of malware regarding internet access, and just some exploits are taken into consideration. So, it allows users to have broad access to organization resources. Okay. So in this policy, there are some restrictions in place, but users are still given, some, I would say, significant access to resources. So this type of policy, it can be appropriate for organization that have high level of trust in their users and a low risk tolerance. Okay. So example would be like, the organization that allows employees to access most of the network, but restricts access to sensitive financial data would be like permissive. But we have a zero trust model, right? We cannot trust everyone when we talk about in terms of security. Prudent, this is a high restriction policy where everything is blocked regarding the internet access. Just a small list of websites are allowed, right? It balances the need for security with the need for business efficiency. Okay. It balances the need for security with the need for business efficiency. So in this type of policy, access to resources is restricted based on users' job responsibilities and the sensitivity of the information. So this type of policy, it is pretty much appropriate for organizations that have a moderate level of risk tolerance, right? So like, for example, if an organization that allows employees to access files related to their job responsibility, but restrict access to sensitive information based on the employee's job role. Paranoid policy, the last one. In this policy, everything is forbidden. Here's the strict restriction on all use of company computers, whether or not it's system usage or network usage, right? So it prioritizes security over business efficiency. It prioritizes security over business efficiency. In this type of policy, access to resources, it is heavily restricted, and user must go through multiple layers of authentication and authorization to access sensitive information. Work flow can be disturbed, I would say, with this one, right? So any organization which is having low risk tolerance and deal with highly sensitive information and with the paranoid policy. Okay. So I hope security policy is clear, right? Next is your incident response. What do you guys mean by the term incident response? Feel free to give the inputs. So for example, very simple example I'm giving you. If I have a bottle of water, if I drop that bottle of water, that's your event. But if I say that bottle of water fell on my foot and I got an injury out of it, that will be known as your incident. Make sense? So whenever an event is having any adverse effect, that will be known as your incident. Okay. So all incidents are an event, but every event is not an incident. So incident response is their process, which is a structured approach for managing and responding to a security incident, such as data breaches, cyber attacks, or other security breaches. So it involves a series of steps designed to identify, contain, investigate, and remediate security incidents in a timely and effective manner. Incident response process is an important component of an effective information security program and helps an organization to minimize the impact of security incidents on their operations, reputation, and bottom line. So there are 6 steps of incident response process. In general, we say 6, but okay, we'll talk about it. So when we talk about incident response, whenever an incident has occurred within the organization, right? We have to, incident is like something malicious has happened. Now our job is to do what? To control that thing, right? We have to make sure it won't affect the organization much now or anymore. And we have to cut it down its impact and try to control that incident so that we can save our other information assets, right? We have to eradicate the cause of that particular incident as well. Then backups, recovery will also be involved, right? So an incident occurred and the respective response against that particular incident will be known as your incident response, right? So For incident response, when we talk about, we have the entire incident response team for the same, right? We do have our incident response team for the same, which will be handling those incidents for us. Correct. They're highly skilled one, highly professionals. So, we have, like, you might have heard about SOC, right? SOC, Security Operations Center. So in this, we have SOC analysts L1, L2, L3, some places, and incident response team is also involved over there. So they generate the ticket, they raise the ticket and pass it to the senior executive, right? So for example, senior executives in L1 analyst will pass it to L2, L2 will pass it to L3, or, like, to incident response team. And they feel like, okay, this incident is quite dangerous and we can no more take the care of it. Then they do this. Incident response team is involved in that part. Okay. So they handle the incidents for us. So in this incident response process, when we're talking about, we have 6 which we talked about: preparation, preparation, identification, containment, investigation, remediation, recovery, and lesson learned. 7, as I mentioned, 7 are included. Okay. Preparation means establish policies, procedures, and guidelines for incident response. Identify the team members responsible for carrying out the process, as well as critical assets um, and data that need to be protected. Right. Awesome. In preparation, like, we are preparing in order to thwart those attacks on the very first place, guys. We are trying to protect or thwart or be resilient to those attacks on the very first place. So it's also like, everything is aligned, and in case if any incident happened, what all steps needs to be taken will also be part of your preparation. Correct. So whenever we go for an examination, what we do, we prepare ourselves, right? Regarding that examination, how we are going to do the exam, what question I'm going to choose first, these ways. you know so all the process will be defined over here. That's a preparation level. So policies, procedure, guidelines for incident response. Identify the team members responsible for carrying out the process, as well as critical assets and data that need to be protected. Then we go for the identification, right? We go for the identification. We monitor systems for unusual activity or unauthorized access, receive reports from employees, customers, and other uh, stakeholders. We identify whether it is in, uh, regarding that particular incident, we identify it, right? If there is any unusual activity, any suspicious behavior, any unauthorized access over there, so we identify that, from any employee or customer, from any stakeholder, or from any third party or external, unauthorized access is being done on our systems. So we look out for these things. We identify an incident over here. That's part of your identification, right? Then once it is identified, we go for the containment part of it. Containment means, just like your, what happened in Corona. Any person who was identified as a, or who was Corona positive, what we did, we put them into an isolation zone so that it won't spread out. Similarly, we go with the containment zone, right? So that that particular malware, for example, won't spread out and affect other systems. So stopping further damage, yes, cutting down its impact, right? Cutting down its impact. Then investigation, determine the root cause and scope of the incident, analyze log files, review network traffic, and interview personnel to gather information. Kind of a forensic job, we can say. We investigate more into that, right? And we determine the root cause if forensic team is being involved, right? So root cause and scope of the incident, analyze the log files, review the network traffic, and interview personnel to gather information out of them. Then we have remediation, as in, eradication. So patch vulnerabilities, remove that particular malware, update security controls, or implement new policies and procedures. Kind of a feedback of this remediation will be taken into the 7th step, which is lesson learned. Then we have recovery. Recovery is like restore the affected systems and data to their pre-incident state. Restore data from backups, rebuild systems, or implement other measures to ensure that business operations can resume as quickly as possible, right? Taking the backup plans. And lesson learned, conduct a post-incident review to identify areas for improvement in incident response procedures, policies, and technical controls. Like, where we fell apart, what went wrong, what needs to be improvised, new security controls need to be implemented. Yes, we can go with that. So these things will be part of a lesson learned. This is kind of an overview of incident response process. Okay, it's very beneficial if you want to take a screenshot on mine, I would say. tickets, good graph, a good flow. Okay. Very first thing is preparation. Prepare to face the security issues, right? The preparation will be including all those which I was talking about. Auditing the resources and assets to determine their purpose of the security response. We define the rules, policies, procedures, that will be driving the incident handling and response process, building and training the incident response team, defining incident readiness procedure, gathering required tools, training employees to secure the system and accounts. That will be your preparation. The incident recording and assignment is there. You know, the preparation phase. So after that, it is followed by your incident recording and assignment phase, where we involve the initial reporting and recording of the incident. So in this phase, it includes identifying the incident and defining a proper incident communication plan for employees. Okay, and raising appropriate ticket, all those things. So when a user or employee reports any suspicious behavior on his or her system to IT support staff, a ticket or a token is created about the irregular behavior, and a member from incident response team is assigned to analyze the issue. So based on the ticket or the IT professionals, their you can say intimation, the incident handling and response team will look into the issue, and if the issue qualifies as an incident, the incident handling and response team will be assigned to handle the incident over there with the compromised device sent to the team for further investigation. Otherwise, the issue will be considered resolved and the ticket will be closed. That will be incident recording. That's why I said is a security incident. If no, close it. If it's, then team will be assigned for that and system will be sent to them. Let's go for the incident triage, guys. When incident analysis and validation will be done, incident will be classified and prioritization will be done. Correct? See, multiple incidents can be there. So some incidents will be there which are having low impact, some can have high impact, some can have you know medium impact. So as per that, we have to prioritize them. Correct? Then triage, which I was saying, incident will be analyzed, validated, categorized, and prioritized. So incident handling and response team, they will further analyze the compromised device to find incident details like what was the attack type, what is severity, target, impact, and method of propagation, as well as the vulnerabilities that attacker has exploited. So these details will be helping the incident handling response team to scale its impact and determine what the other targets were involved in the incident, what techniques it must apply to contain the incident, and what it must prioritize to solve the incident over there, right? Notification phase, it involves the release of incident, information to various stakeholders. See, without senior approval, can we handle that incident? If the senior management team, if their board of members are there, without their approval or stakeholder approval, can we follow anything? No, right? That is equally important. Correct. So here we'll be going with that notification and getting that permission. Side by side, I would say, guys, containment will always be there because like, see, if I am waiting for their, uh, permission from my management that do this or do not do this, till that time the attack will be expanded. So containment will go hand in hand, right? Because we have to do what? We have to cut down its impact also. So I would say at the same time as your notification phase, your containment phase will also be there, where we contain that particular incident so it won't spread to other organization assets. Then evidence gathering and forensic analysis, which I was saying, forensic, it will be sent to the forensic department. Okay. So they'll be collecting the evidence. Team will be accumulate all possible evidences related to an incident and submit it to the forensic department for investigation. Okay. So like information would be like, or those evidences would be like details related to the method of attack as well as the vulnerabilities which has been exploited, network devices which got infected, application which got compromised that have, worked as a pathways for an attack, right? So these things. Then we go for the eradication. Eradication will remove, or eliminate the root cause of the incident and close all attack vectors to prevent similar incidents in future. Okay. So patching vulnerabilities, replacing any malfunctioning devices, installing better security mechanism, all those will be part of your eradication. Then we finally go for the recovery. After eliminating the cause of the incident handling response team is responsible for restoring the affected system, the services, the resources, and data through a recovery process. So it is the responsibility of the incident response team to ensure that the incident does not disrupt the organization operations anymore, right? So they may need to, I would say, uh, what do we call it? Like, they have to watch that particular system which has been uh, recovered for a while in order to see that if there is any reoccurrence, the same malware or some same thing. Post-incident activities, incident documentation, impact assessment, review and revise policies, post-incident, disclosure required. Yes, disclosure for sure. Incident documentation, so incident responder, they will be documenting the complete incident handling and response processes from detection to recovery, okay. So these documentation actually they help or they serve as a future reference so that they can understand and practice properly the incident handling and response process, right? So that thing. And basically also handlers, these incident handlers, they should present the report to legal counsel, submit to the management. Also they use it to assess laws, review policies, change security norms. For that it is also required. Incident impact assessment will be there. So after completing the formal incident handling response process from incident recording to documentation, your incident handling response team will analyze the information available to perform an incident impact analysis. That will be assessing the impact of the damages or the loss the organization suffered as a result of the. So, Maisha, total assessment will be done, right? How much impact has organization has faced. So complete later report will be there. So input from the previous stages will be part of it only. So it's not like we are doing the impact assessment at that time. No. Okay. So whatever the total loss we have seen, so all those documents will be reviewed in this particular part. It's a lesson learned. That's why. Yeah, post-mortem report, you can see exactly. Then review and revise policies. So yeah. So after we have assessed the incident impact, we'll review and revise the organization policies, prepare for new things. Any security controls which needs to be added or to prevent the future incident will be added over here. That thing. Then we close the investigation, and if incident disclosure is required, so organization incident handling response team and management will discuss whether to disclose the incident details to the public or not, like to customers, media, to these things. Right? If yes, then they will disclose it. Otherwise, they won't. Anuj, I agree. I agree. So it can depend to that as well. The last one, what is risk and its types? Uh, Risk, which we already have um, discussed. Let's take this at later in the question answer round. Okay. Risk refers to the degree of uncertainty and or potential financial loss inherent in an investment decision, you can say, or when you found out that okay, any threat which is a likelihood of impacting the organization will be also considered as your risk only, right? So risk, it's like a probability, we can say, right? You guys have already studied this in the previous topics, right? Risk is the right word. It's like a probability which may happen, which may not. Agree? Like we put your money on the share market. It is done on the basis of a risk only, right? Because we are never 100% sure that the share market will be going up or share market will be going down. Correct? We do the calculative though, but we are not making 100%. Agree? So risk is kind of a probability, a degree of uncertainty and potential loss. So when you talk about risk, some common types of risk I have written over here. Malware risk is there, social engineering risk, physical security, insider threat, network security, application security, cloud security, regulatory compliance risk. Malware refers to any malicious software which we have studied. So that is designed to harm or steal data from a computer system or from the network. So malware, they can be spread through infected emails, website, or USB drives also. So it can cause data loss, system crashes, and unauthorized access or to sensitive information. Social engineering, you know, techniques manipulating people, which is used by the hackers to manipulate individuals into giving them sensitive information or performing an action that compromises security of a system or a network, right? So phishing, baiting, these are the examples. Physical security risk, potential harm that can be caused to a system, or a network due to physical access to hardware infrastructure. It can include theft, vandalism, and damage caused by natural disaster like floods or fires. These treatments you're talking about, right? Insider threat risk are there. Insider threats are security risks which are posed by the employees or the unauthorized one. So they can be any disgruntled employee who's not happy with the organization, or who is not getting appraisal from his manager for 2 or 3 years, right? Anyone like that over here? So they can be your insider threat. So that risk can also be there. Those who want to you damage the organization. Network security risk, it can be also there. Vulnerability that exists in the network infrastructure, like your routers, switches, firewall, those things. Application security risk. Read about the SQL injection attacks, cross-site scripting excesses, right? Those are what? OWASP top 10 application security risk, right? Nice. Cloud security risk. Potential security threats and vulnerability that exist in cloud computing environments. That can include unauthorized access, data breach, configuration errors. Regulatory compliance risk refer to the potential legal and financial consequences of failing to comply with regulatory requirements and standards, right? That will be regulatory compliance risk. So in this, what do we have? We have risk management, right? So risk management is what? Risk management is a process of identifying, assessing, and controlling the risk to an organization operations, assets, and data. It involves evaluating the likelihood and potential impact of risk and implementing strategies to reduce, to mitigate them, right? The goal of risk management is to minimize the negative impact of potential threats and vulnerabilities to an organization's ability to achieve its objective. Effective risk management involves a number of activities, including risk assessment, risk analysis, evaluation, treatment, and monitoring and review, right? So, like if I talk about information security risk management, they would have the process of identifying, assessing, and managing the risk which is related to the organization's information assets. So information security risk, it will be including unauthorized access, data breaches, system failures, any human error. So goal of information security risk management is to do what? It is to make sure or ensure that an organization can protect its information assets from unauthorized access and maintain the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of its information. So any e-commerce company, for example, that collects and stores customer data will need to conduct an information security risk management assessment to identify the potential risk, like any data breach, cyber attack, or insider threat. So by conducting an information security risk management assessment, that e-commerce company, they can develop a risk management plan to mitigate these risk and ensure the protection of its customer data, right? A quick idea about the cycle of your you know risk management when we're talking about, just to give a quick idea about it. We have what, like risk identification is there. This involves, it's kind of a basic one. This involves identifying the potential risk to an organization operations, assets, and data. This can include conducting risk assessment, reviewing incident reports, and analyzing the trends. Risk analysis. Once risk has been identified, the next step is to analyze the likelihood and potential impact of each risk. This can involve quantifying risk in terms of financial impact, reputational damage, or any other factors. Then risk evaluation will be there. Um, After analyzing risk, the next step is to evaluate each risk to determine its priority and decide whether to accept, transfer, mitigate, or avoid the risk, right? Risk treatment. And then we have risk treatment. Based on the evaluation, organization can take these steps to treat or mitigate the risk, right? So this can include implementing controls to reduce the likelihood of a risk occurring or minimizing its impact. Then risk monitoring and review will be there. Um, Once risks have been treated or mitigated, organization, they should monitor the effectiveness of the controls and review the risk on an ongoing basis. This ensures that the risk remains within acceptable levels and the new risks are identified and addressed. Mahesh, I would say acceptable level. Actually, acceptable level of risk, it varies from organization to organization, right? Depending on nature of the business or regulatory environment, organization risk appetite also. Correct. So acceptable level of risk, I guess, your senior management, they does it. They weigh the potential risk and what are the benefits of a particular activity or project against the organization overall goals and objectives. They look out for the risk appetite, cost benefit analysis, regulatory environment, business impact, risk tolerance. These things will be included, I can say, in terms of acceptable level, right? Okay, so it's like, yeah, we can say risk avoidance kind of we are eliminating the risk altogether by avoiding the activity that creates the risk. right? So company, they may choose not to enter into a market because the risks associated with the market are too high, for example, like that, right? Or in software company, they may choose not to develop a new software product because the market is already saturated and the risk of failure is also too high over there. Risk avoidance. Risk transfer, just like your insurance company, right? You take out insurance of your car, bike, anything happens, they will take care of it then. That's a risk transfer. So insurance is just like that. And risk mitigation, we implemented the security controls in order to mitigate that particular risk, right? And whatever the risk is left after that, the residual risk we call it, right? Residual risk. Residual risk is whatever the risk is left after implementing the security controls. Okay, whatever the risk is left after implementing the security controls will be known as your residual risk. So whatever the residual risk is there, we accept that particular risk. Okay, so we're accepting the risk and its potential impact. So for example, a company may accept the risk of a project going over budget because the potential benefit of the project, it will be outweighing the potential financial impact over there for that thing.